It's Radio Gibraltar at 20 minutes to 2. Thanks to Davina for local news, and the programme now continues. We're taking your calls on 200 48995. Email directdemocracy@gbc.gi. And waiting patiently on the line during the news, we had John Phillips. Mr. Phillips, good afternoon to you. Thanks for waiting on the line.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for your patience. Your question for the Chief Minister, please.
Yes, my question was regarding the slipway that's been removed at Western Beach, and if any other means would be provided to the member of public, seeing more that now the summer season has begun and that there's lots of people with their boats outside of the water and jet skis which have no means of putting them in the water without paying a premium at private companies.
Okay, Mr. Phillips, thank you very much for your call. Mr. Picardo?
Yes, a public slipway is very much on the cards. When it will be completed and whether it will be in time for this summer season is the jury is still out on that. I hope it will be, because I understand the importance of this for people who have their boats out of the water. The reason that the previous slipway has been done away with is related to the creation of the larger area of reclamation in the area of Western Beach. So it's something that has to be reprovided.
So there is no date for that?
There is no date for finalising those works. It may be that arrangements will be made to use other facilities by the government so that the members of the public can use other existing facilities
also
to tide us over whilst we get to a new public facility.
Okay, also a question somewhat related. Could you please tell us when the small boat berths will be constructed?
I can't tell you when it will be constructed. I can tell you it will be constructed during this term of office and as soon as possible. We are looking at some technical aspects of what the orientation of the pier in the area in front of Europort will need to be in order to ensure that the turning circle of cruise ships is provided for. But there will still be the number of berths that we have promised. We're just trying to ensure that the design is improved as much as possible, and it will be provided very quickly.
Another email, this time from Rosemary. Will the government repair the leaking podium at Harbour Views as promised in their leaflet delivered to all letterboxes on the estate 1 week before the election, and if so, when?
The answer, of course, is yes, because we committed ourselves to do so in a leaflet delivered before the election, and we will honour those promises. And the question of when is a matter that is being dealt with already with the Committee of Harbour Views and some of the government's technical experts who are understanding what the problem continues to be. It's a problem of the repairs done by the previous, or under the auspices of the previous administration, and we will fix that.
One of the issues that she's perhaps highlighting is the time it's taking. This is you have to fix a leaking podium. You've issued today a statement saying that you've delivered on over 100 commitments in 6 months. Should this person perhaps not expect this to have happened sooner?
Well, the reason that she couldn't have expected it to happen sooner is because repairing that leak is not repairing a leak in a window. This is a very serious problem which involves the type of repair that was done before, which should have completely sealed the podium. And it's now a question of understanding where the leaks are coming from and repairing in a way that is not going to be quick today, but a problem again tomorrow. We want to repair this once and for all, and that's why we've engaged with experts who are going to be able to identify both what the problem continues to be and how to fix it for good. And we're doing that with the Committee of Harbour Views. So the Committee of Harbour Views know exactly what it is that we're engaged in doing. There is a government individual now dealing exclusively with problems at Harbour Views and other co-ownership estates, so that we deal with these things once and for all, both at the estates which are there from the 1990s and the new estates. You'll recall that the previous administration used to say that their estates never had any problems. Well, actually, when we got into office and even before then, we knew that there were lots of problems, even in some of the very new estates, and we're having to deal with those as well.
Okay, let's go back to another email, this time from Dylan, and he says, Mr. Picardo, due to the heated nature of the current situation and the level of hate that us locals are perceiving from our neighbours on the Spanish side, he refers to constant threats to a person as a nation and the fact no one can go over to Spain without looking over their shoulders. Do you personally feel there's a solution to this problem? And once our territorial waters dispute is sorted and officially recognised as ours, when the hatred escalates, how can you guarantee the safety of our population?
Well, look, I think that the Spanish state does many things in relation to Gibraltar, but it doesn't want to see any Gibraltarian injured. So the officers of the state of Spain, who are police officers, guardia civils, etc., are there to protect Gibraltarians in Spain as much as our police officers are here to protect anybody who is in Gibraltar, regardless of their nationality. There have been flashpoints of this sort before. This is not something that has happened since we were elected. There were things happening which were very serious in 2009 and previously under Mr. Caruana's regime. You know, there are times when the temperature does rise. It is an obligation on all incumbent Gibraltar chief ministers, I believe, to deal and assert with vigour the Gibraltar case, whilst at the same time also trying to find solutions on a day-to-day basis for the issues that affect people who work in Gibraltar from Spain, from Gibraltarians who go to Spain, etc. I certainly am not doing anything to close any opportunities for that sort of dialogue. I have, at the United Nations, invited Spain to come back to the negotiating table of the trilateral to deal with matters short of sovereignty, which are of mutual interest. One issue which the Partido Popular in Spain and the Gibraltar government have in common is that both of us believe that the trilateral process is not a place to discuss issues which relate to sovereignty. They, because they say it's only a bilateral matter for them in the United Kingdom, which we do not accept, and we will not allow the United Kingdom to enter into bilateral sovereignty negotiations with Spain or any other negotiations involving Gibraltar. And we, because we believe it's a bilateral matter for us and the British Crown as the Crown of Gibraltar.
Is Spain going to go back to the negotiating table? The tripartite process is very much dead, isn't it?
If you look at what is being said in Spain, not just by the government, but by the opposition, etc., Spain is not united on this issue. The trilateral was a creation of the PSOE, and they seem to be still very keen on the process and are encouraging in certain statements made in the Senate, etc., that the Spanish government should re-engage in the trilateral process. So it appears that the failure to have trilateral meetings is going to extend at least whilst Mr. Margallo is there, although I wish he would reconsider the issue, especially now that I am confirming once again, as I have continually, that for Gibraltar, for the present government of Gibraltar, it is not a place to discuss sovereignty.
Not directly linked to the question we've received on email, but you mentioned the safety. In our news bulletin, we've had a serious attack today, news of another serious attack at the weekend, police appealing for witnesses. Is Gibraltar no longer the safe place it used to be, and will you put extra resources to the RGP if those are needed?
Gibraltar, I can tell you, having suffered a blow myself to my face whilst I was leader of the opposition, unrelated to politics, is not an exclusively safe place. You have to take care where you go at night, and you have to make sure that you don't put yourself in jeopardy. And we have to deal with those issues. One of the things we have done since we were elected is we've acceded to an increase in the number of police officers as a result of a request by the Commissioner of Police, and that's a matter that's being dealt with very ably by the Minister for Justice and the new Commissioner, Mr. Yomi. He had a plan to implement upon his becoming commissioner, which involved the introduction of neighbourhood policing. I think that was an excellent idea. I'm delighted to see him seeing it through. People need to see police officers in their area. A lot of people are reporting that as something positive. I can see policemen on the beat in my area. He required extra resources in order to be able to deliver that. That was done. But perhaps the biggest thing that we have done, and I think it was a simple but important step, was to take the HEOs, the Highways Enforcement Officers, and put them under the control of the Traffic Department of the Royal Gibraltar Police. Because under the previous administration, who created the HEOs, these were controlled separately. I believe that there had to be a unified command in respect of traffic, and my cabinet agreed, and the Minister for Justice was very much in control of making that happen, and working with the Royal Gibraltar Police and the HEO and the establishment and the unions, we've been able to create that. That will mean that there are more police officers able to do police work and not having to be in charge of traffic duties, which will be the purview principally, although of course police officers are still required in certain instances, but principally of HEOs.
Okay, you made that point clear. Let's move on back to the telephone lines. Stephen Belilo, good afternoon to you.
Hello, good afternoon.
Your question for the Chief Minister, please.
Yes, Mr. Ricardo, as you, I don't know if you are aware, but some Waterford terrorist neighbors are doing an online petition regarding the power station. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you understand that our quality of life here is unbearable because of the noise and the fumes from the power station. We were promised that by 2010 we'd have a new power station. Obviously, that hasn't happened, and this administration has stopped the GST project. We want to know what's going to happen regarding this. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Mr. Belilo.
Thank you, Stephen. Look, what's going to happen is that power station is going to be moved as soon as possible. We had a manifesto commitment to comply with any agreements that had been signed in respect of the new power station.
Sorry,
and
sir,
when
to
we were
answer his
elected,
question, do you know when as soon as possible is?
I will. Hang on, let me get round to it. When I became elected, I found that there was no signed agreement for a new power station. The agreements that were signed were not yet for the building of the power station. You've got to understand this is a decision not just in respect of Waterport Terraces, but in respect of the whole of Gibraltar, and not just for the next 3 years, but for the next 30 years, and we have to get it right. And one of our principal endeavours is to get all power generation out of residential areas. And I think that there will be a statement very soon now, which will satisfy people in not just Waterport Terraces, but also Gib 5, Harbour Views,
So do you
and
have
the
a
people
date
in the
for
South
that?
District.
Is there a time frame?
No, I don't have a date. That's why I'm telling you very soon. If I had a date, I'd tell you the date. But believe me, as I have said before, this is the issue that occupies most of my time, even more than fishermen, even more than Senor Margallos's statements about Gibraltar, because it is the most important issue for the government that we get this right. We did not believe that the previous administration had got it right. Perhaps it was right as to location, but it was certainly wrong in our view as to the type of generating capacity that was being introduced. We can't afford to get it wrong as a community.
Okay, let's go back to the emails. Mario has written in, when is the government going to take action against the discrimination suffered by disabled persons under 60 who pay taxes on their pension?
I think that people like Mario will be very happy with statements that will be made very shortly by the government, because there are issues as to discrimination against disabled people that have to be dealt with. Again, there's a manifesto commitment to deal with them. I consider discrimination on the grounds of disability to be as serious as discrimination on the grounds of race or of sex or any of the other constitutional discriminations, and we're in the process of elevating discrimination on the grounds of disability to that level.
Yolanda has sent in an email too. Is anything going to be done about the divers in Camp Bay?
Certainly something is going to be done about the divers in Camp Bay. I am frankly very disappointed about the practice that has been allowed to build up over the past decade, where these divers are taking areas which are principally for people to swim, and they're completely taking them over. They are actually running a business in Gibraltar without declaring it for social insurance, PAYE or other purposes, and it has to be dealt with. And one of the things that we were ready to do as soon as we were elected was a policy paper on how to amend our laws in respect of these divers. John Cortez from the Environment Ministry has already been in consultation with all the interested groups who have received that policy consultation document, and we're very shortly going to make the necessary changes to our rules and regulations. I don't think this requires a change of the legislation, so it doesn't require parliamentary time and 6 weeks of waiting time to deal with these issues, so that people reclaim our Roja Bay back for our people, and anybody who comes and carries on a business in Gibraltar is going to have to register. And very dangerous it is too if they come to Gibraltar to dive with people who are beginners, and then the problem, if it arises, is for us.
Okay, back to the fishing dispute. This is an email we've received in Spanish. I'll just translate for you very briefly. And the person asking whether you are particularly satisfied or accusing you of having created an unnecessary conflict between Spain and Gibraltar over the fishing dispute, and asking for your feelings on that.
Look, I have not set out to create any unnecessary conflict. For me, it is fundamentally important, as I'm sure it is for every other Gibraltarian, that the law of Gibraltar is complied with. We had a gaping hole in our law and in the rule of law, and in the fact that everybody in Gibraltar has to comply with Gibraltar's laws, and what effect that had on our territorial waters, because Spanish nationals were being allowed to do things there which Gibraltarian British citizens were not being allowed to do. It had to be dealt with. I, as a socialist, not set out to try and make any working person's life harder or to create antipathy between the people of Gibraltar and the people of Spain. I go out of my way always to say that we are there at the trilateral table, ready to talk with Spain on any issue of mutual interest and importance. And look, I think frankly what creates antipathy is for somebody to say, who is supposed to be a diplomat, Gibraltar español, and este chiste ya se acabó. Frankly, those are the things that get people's hairs up, and it's my responsibility to ensure that we work through that. But in the general population, I can understand why people took it so badly.
Can I take you back to the royal visit and the inauguration of the Jubilee Terrace and the Wessex Lounge by the royal couple? And I think I asked you this on radio last week, but can you clarify this for us? Were the royal couple not supposed to inaugurate the air terminal, and is not that at least the impression created in Parliament originally?
Well, that was never the
Was
impression.
there a change in the plans?
Absolutely not. Certainly not. No change in the plans whatsoever. What the royal couple did, and I put it on record in case it wasn't sufficiently on record when you asked me this question last week, was exactly what it was envisaged they would do from the beginning, that this issue was on the cards.
Can I look at Hansard and your answer to a question by Peter Caruana? He says, members, would you consider inviting the Earl of Wessex to inaugurate the new terminal? And your answer was the programme for the visit for the Earl and Countess of Wessex has already been settled and subject to security issues. Given that the Honourable Gentleman has raised the issue, that is already on their programme.
And if you
does
carry on reading, I think I say something about naming of areas.
Yes, including a name which is relevant, including the terminal and VIP suite. So it gives the impression that it's the entire terminal.
Well, it may have given the impression, but that was never what was on the cards. What was on the cards was the namings that I've told you about.
Do you agree that it might have given that
impression? No, I don't. What I agree with is that the important issue that needs to be clarified is whether the programme was changed. The programme was not changed at all. It was exactly what was envisaged. Exactly what was envisaged. No question of any politician from outside of Gibraltar saying something to the media which then has an effect in the way that the royal household or the government of Gibraltar deal with the programme of the royal family in Gibraltar. Absolutely no question at all.
Okay, and on the royal visit, very, very quickly, there's an email here from Roger who says he was in the UK over the Jubilee weekend. He missed the celebrations, but he expresses disappointment that there was very little coverage in the international media, for example, BBC, and he values your comments on this.
Well, look, it's not up to us to tell other broadcasters outside of Gibraltar or even inside of Gibraltar what coverage they should have of the royal visit. I know that some people were disappointed with the coverage from GBC and some people were delighted with the coverage from GBC. This is a question of how long is a piece of string, but if Roger feels strongly about that, I know that the BBC News channel have a complaint system that you can watch on Saturday mornings. They actually put it on the air, and if he cares to write to them, I think it's Points of View or News Watch, it's actually called. They might carry that. Some of the international papers from the UK press carried the story. Some papers as far away as Australia and Mexico carried the story. Look, as far as Gibraltar is concerned, the important thing was that they came to Gibraltar, not the coverage that it got internationally.
Very briefly, you just come back from the United Nations. Is the next big thing on your agenda the budget? And can we ask you for a preview? I know there's been the whole debate on the economy, but how is this budget going to affect people's pockets?
The next big thing on my agenda is Parliament this week, and thereafter the budget. I am not going to give you a preview, but well done for asking.
And can you not give us at least an indication of what people can expect? Is it going to be good news or bad news?
That's what makes you such a good journalist, that you keep plugging away even when people are going to respect the convention of not giving the budget away before budget day. But look, I hope it will be seen as a very good budget for people and for businesses.
Chief Minister Fabian Picardo, thank you very much for joining us on Direct Democracy on Radio Gibraltar today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, James.
You're listening to Radio Gibraltar. Coming up, our closing news headline. And Fabian Picardo has issued a defiant message at the United Nations Committee of 24 on Decolonization. Speaking in New York on Friday, the Chief Minister, whom you've just heard on the programme, said, "Wake up and smell the coffee. Gibraltar will never be Spanish." Mr. Picardo accused the Guardia Civil of invading Gibraltar's territorial waters and Madrid of being scared of testing its maritime and sovereignty claims in court. He urged the Spanish government to return to the tripartite forum for dialogue and suggested that the next annual seminar of the C24 could take place in Gibraltar. That's the programme today. We're back tomorrow between 1 and 2. It's local news in Spanish next.